Okay, this class is for the Ilui Neshama of my son, Elisha Meir, ben Yaakov Cohen. That's me and Devorah. So Rabbi Wolfie's out of town, and he asked me to fill in this class. And I'm going to give a waiver. I don't know if I'm qualified to teach this class on one hand. Okay? On the other hand, maybe I am the only person who can qualify to teach this class. Or maybe some of you can also chime in. Okay? But some of you might be familiar roughly with my story of what has happened to me over the past 2 years. It's a hard one. It's one that everybody wants to probably crawl under the table, run into that closet, or go somewhere else. It's the thought that no one wants to even entertain, even remotely in their minds, whether in the front or back or any other place. But it is the story of my son, who basically was diagnosed with a brain tumor on October 2012, and passed away this last April 2014. It's been an 18-month battle of unbelievable treatments and unbelievable dips, curves in every single time in terms of his battle and everything that has engulfed him and us in terms of our family and our family situation. Okay. Nobody should ever experience something like this, and what I and my wife have experienced and are currently experiencing, which is why I say I'm not so qualified to teach this class, because I'm still in the middle of it. I'm still fresh. It's still very fresh to us. 6 months is nowhere near, or actually now it's a little bit longer. It's like, anybody who could ask the question, why the Holocaust, and no one really is equipped to answer even that, because it's too close to us. We can't see things from a distance. People give a lot of answers. Even in the Orthodox realm, there is no answer to the Holocaust. And bottom line, there is no answer here. I'm going to talk about answers that maybe satisfy intellectually, but nothing really satisfies the heart. Nothing really satisfies the soul. And if you don't believe me, go ask my wife. Okay? We somehow, like I say, it's very fresh. Okay? Listen, Emunah is something. Emunah means faith. Okay? And it's something that really, bottom line, is the thing that we're sent here to master. Thank you that you have those tissues close to me.
You might have them as well.
I might
I'm
use
willing
them.
to share.
Okay? So Emunah, faith, that's the name of this class, I believe, right? Is it something that has to do with Emunah?
This class is pain and suffering.
Pain and suffering, which really is Emunah, which is really the age-old question. Moshe Rabbeinu, he did ask this question. Moses did ask. That he did ask God. He wants to know, Tzaddik Varalo, what's the deal? Which means the righteous person, and he has a bad time. What's the deal with that? He asked, the greatest prophet of all. And God says, no, I'm not. I cannot give you an answer. Okay, there's different reasons why God couldn't give him an answer. But in the bottom line, he had no answer. Okay? So we're going to go through a couple of answers. Like I said, nothing is going to satisfy totally because of the prism that we are currently existing in now. In other words, this dimension that we're in now is not going to satisfy anything. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question. Why did you say God had no answer?
No, God did not want to give him. God has answers. He has all the answers. In the next world, by the way, there are many, many people who had friends, beloved ones, close ones, and they say, when you pass on and you go to the world of truth, I have questions. Could you come back to me in a dream so you can answer my questions? And sometimes they did come back, and the person would say, well, what about my questions? And they go, no, you don't understand. This world, meaning the spirit world, there's only answers. This is not the world of questions. There's, but here we are in our situation. going through whatever level of tests that we are on, and everybody is tested. And if you're not tested, then come see me privately, okay? Everybody has, to some degree, of trials, to some degree. Trial, Emunah. Trial is really the word for nisayon, okay? Nisayon is an interesting word in Hebrew. Nisayon means trial. Abraham was tested with 10 trials, and so our other forefathers and many other rabbis, and everybody also has trials. And it's an interesting word if you look in the Hebrew word for trial. Nisayon, actually, the root of nisayon is nes. Nes is nun samach, right?
Miracle.
And it means miracle, and it also means banner. Banner, like a flag. Well, we know that everything has a connection in Hebrew in terms of its root letters. How can test, banner, and miracle jive? All those three concepts go together. It doesn't seem to be connected, right? You think, right? So what is it when God sends a trial? What is he doing, right? Really what he's doing, he makes a certain situation or condition. By the way, we have handed down to us, God does not give a trial to someone who cannot take it. It's one of those given rules. It's hard. It's very hard. Okay? Because I look at my situation and my wife and I'm going like, she can't handle this. And so why is this happening? But nevertheless, that is the given rule. Okay?
Where does that rule come from?
The sages handed down. Moshe from Sinai. Comes from Moses. One of those oral law statements.
But we see that some people are crushed. They die. They commit suicide. They go crazy.
Okay?
They couldn't handle it.
They couldn't handle it. Now, suicide, crazy, I don't have an answer. Like I said, I don't have answers. All I know is that's the rule. So let me just explain what a nisayon is. It will answer little questions at the end. So when God, let's say, for example, sends to Abraham and tells him, let's just shoot to the chase, sacrifice your son. Whoa. What is he doing? Really what he does when he puts pressure on people, he wants them to bring out a hidden, a latent potential that is unexpressed to come out. Okay? So it comes out and it, there's a flying colors and then there's not so flying colors, right? So really what it is the idea of bringing out a hidden, a latent potential, a latent expression, a very unique expression, okay? So a nes, a banner, we can understand the connection between nisayon, test, and banner, because a banner is an expression. It is a flag. It is all who are on this camp, come here, right? You see the tourist guides in Disneyland walking with the flag so you don't get lost. Right? So it's a shooting, it's an extension. It's an outward expression. Okay? The idea of miracle, though, is a little tricky. But then again, I think it's really quite understandable what a miracle is. Because we have something called nature, and then you have something called miracle. Now, nature, if you really know, is nothing more than miracles that we got used to, and how it is understood in our oral law and oral tradition and all the mystical teachings and writings, that really we understand in the bottom line, every single thing, every single moment, in every single piece of existence is God willing it to exist every single moment. Every single thing is constantly God giving it its animation. Okay? Constantly willed that if God would, God forbid, take away his will from that thing existing, it would disappear. It would not exist anymore. When God made the creation, and we have handed down with 10 utterances, 10 statements, and God said, let there be light, and God said, let there be a firmament, God said, let us make man. There's 10 of those God saids in the first chapter in Genesis. God spoke and created the world. That speaking is not something he spoke and he left. That speaking is still giving everything in its most inner sense, in the Kabbalistic sense, its existence. So he, in essence, is giving everything its constant existence. If, let's say, you were born and raised, your generation and the generations before you and the generations before and before you, would know that in the world, every single day at 12 o'clock, every single body of water would split. Clockwork. Every bowl of soup, every cup of coffee, every swimming pool would all of a sudden split for a matter of 20 minutes, 22.9 minutes. And it was always like that, and you were raised in a world that was like that. Let's say, you can just work with me. Imagine. And you came into the world, and every day the water's just split, no matter where you were, right? Don't go swimming between 12 and 12:22, okay? You might have an issue.
It would be good to eat lunch at 11:30 then.
and you came into the world, and it was like that, and your grandparents, and all the world saw it like that. So you would think it's nature. And the scientists would come up with a reason why the shifting of the moon with the gravity and whatever. They'd come up with all their scientific principles of how and to explain it, okay? But basically it would be a miracle that you got used to because we were born with it. All of existence in terms of nature is really a constant God willing it to exist, to give it that animation because God wills it every single second. The numerical value in Hebrew of ha-teva, hey, tet, bet, ayin, ha-teva, the numerical value is the same gematria of Elohim, God. One of those things. In other words, if you take the nature, the word, and the same numerical value in Hebrew, it's God. So really, it's just a way of us, because we're finite beings. We're finite beings. We're finite beings.
What is the number?
Oh, the number is 86. Okay? So we're finite beings. The purpose of creation, I have to go back, just take a little step back. The purpose of creation is for us to wake up to the infinite. God has a purpose in creation. The purpose of creation, for those of you who took my Kabbalah class a long time ago, Judaism 101. God made a creation in order to, do you remember? 2 words, bestow pleasure. He wanted to bestow pleasure. He willed to bestow pleasure. He doesn't need to. He wants to bestow pleasure. So, he wants to bestow pleasure. So the idea here is, what is that greatest pleasure that he can possibly give to his children? He loves his creation. We have no idea the amount of love that he loves his creation. We have no idea. He only wants the best, right? As I say, only the best of pasta for my boys, right? Only the best. What's the best? Himself, because he is everything. He's all that there is. So if God wants to give his creation, basically we are all created to partake of infinity. Okay? Does it make sense? Somewhat? If God made a creation to bestow pleasure, he wants to get the best thing is himself. So therefore we are created to have a relationship with God, to have a relationship with infinity. Now you might have, most of us do, already have preconceived notions of the word God. Okay, it's kind of like one thing that we have to start to take apart, shake, and loosen up, because usually most people in this world, in this generation, and definitely in Western society, have already. I'm telling you, I sat with Jews who've been Jewish for a long time in a synagogue, telling them about God, and I finally told them, it's infinity, it's Ein Sof, and they go, "Well, you mean it's not like an old man with an old beard sitting on a throne?"
Come on.
In the sky? No, I had it. It happened to me. The guy says, "Wow, I am awakened." Okay? People have unbelievable ideas. Okay. So if God makes a creation in order to bestow pleasure, he wants to give you that pleasure. So we are created to partake of infinity. The problem is we're finite. We're created to be finite. We're meant to be finite because we have to appreciate what infinity is. So if we're finite beings meant to waken up to something infinite, he has to create an environment for us not to freak us out. If you would wake up and your daily experience would be where the table all of a sudden turns into a chair and then turns into a closet and then a cup of coffee, you would go crazy. we would not be able to handle reality. If all of a sudden your aunt turns into your uncle, who's now your nephew, you can't function. You need something to hold on to. We need vessels. We need at least the certain, we're baby steps. We need baby steps because we're little finite little entities that are meant to, we have to hold on to things. We have to get a grip of something, and then we start to wean off, and we have to start to wean off and get into the world of the infinite. And we have to shed off the world of the finite and get into the world of the infinite and the universe of the infinite. So there's nature, what we get used to, and then there's what's nisayon, which is a miracle, which is something that obviously sticks out of nature. So we have here the connection. Test for you to express your potential, banner, expression, and miracle also, expression, okay? So basically we have to look at tests that God doesn't give a test that no one can handle. Like I say, I'm not qualified because I'm still in the middle. But we'll do the best we can and navigate answers, and we'll probably all be left with questions. But at least you'll have something to grip, okay? No promises, okay? Eov. Everybody asks about Eov. Good old Job, right? What's wrong with that, okay? Job, as we know, anybody who's read any of the book of Job, how can it be that God would obviously let the Satan go ahead and pick on this poor soul and do everything that he did to him, and then here he's sitting in mourning and he's got all his boils and his trials and his tribulations, and will he curse God or will he not curse God, right? In the end, God says, listen, man, I run the show. You don't know you don't know the path of the soul. I'll give you the rest of the story of Job. People don't know the whole story because we have in our tradition in the Zohar brings down certain things that Job was involved in. Okay? Does anybody know? Yeah.
I don't remember. He was at the court of Pharaoh.
Excellent. He was one of Pharaoh's 3 advisors. Pharaoh had 3 advisors. He had Jethro, who became the father-in-law of Moses. He had Job, and then he had Balaam, right? The wicked Balaam. He had 3 goods. Jethro says, don't mess with the Jewish people, because Pharaoh says, I got to deal with these Jews. Every time I go into a store, I got to wait in line to buy my groceries, because there's like 10 Jews here with shopping carts up to here. I can't stand it anymore. Everywhere I go, there's Jews. All my people are complaining. There's Jews everywhere. We got to do something with this, right? They're not us. So Jethro says, listen, they're blessed people. They come from unbelievable stock. Don't do anything with them. If you take care of them, you'll get a blessing, right? Paro did not like that answer. Okay, that's why Jethro had to run away, because he was chased, outcast, and had to leave in the middle of the night with the shur on his back and his family and run back to the land of Midian. Okay? Bilam said, kill him. Let's do genocide. Round him up, gas him. Okay? And Job is an argument what he said. Some people say Job was just quiet and silenced his agreement. Or another view says Job says, no, oppress them and take their money. Or take their money and oppress them. Okay? Pick whatever verse. So Job really has a little history to him. There's the rest of the story that maybe you were not told of. That really Job, who did either silence or gave this piece of advice, later on did go to Israel, and he was as righteous as a person can be, Still, nevertheless, there is a thing called karma, and whatever you give comes back to you. And so it came back to him. Okay?
He didn't atone.
That was his atonement. That was his tikkun. Listen, some people even say Job was never a real character. Some people say Job was written by Moses. Moses wrote the book of Job to go ahead and give you some kind of hints or some kind of, a slap in the face for human suffering. Yeah.
In Job's complaint, he says he wishes he had never been born, and he prays for darkness. And when Hashem answers him, he speaks of the glory of birth. He even imagines or speaks of ice giving birth.
I don't want to go into verses. I'm not going to.
No, the whole thing, everything he says is all about life and the glory of life in spite of everything.
Yes, and Job did in the end of his life get an unbelievable nechama. Nechama means consolation. His life was turned around, and it was an unbelievable bliss. Okay, so we'll get into that in just a minute. Okay. The other idea of Job was because also the Zohar says was because Job, he did the kind of sacrifices where he didn't give in to the dark side. It's a very deep principle in Kabbalah, is where you have to give the dog a bone. You have to give something to the other side, something a little smidge. Every mitzvah has a little smidge of something we give to the dark side. If you know on tefillin, the phylacteries that men wear, there's a little strand of white hairs that have to stick up in the front. They must be there. Otherwise, the tefillin is not kosher. Now, if you think if an expert sewman can obviously, when he's stitching these boxes together, can obviously fix the stitch and the knot where it's on the other side in the back and cut them. And then where there is no white hairs sticking up. No, it's for the dark side. Every mitzvah has something in it there is something in there. At the end of a meal, the tradition, the law is that a person washes their fingertips. Really, classically, it's just to get the schmutz off your fingers from eating, right? But really, we take that water that we washed in, just our fingertips, and we take it and we have to remove it from the table. That's giving the dog a bone. Job, when he made sacrifices, it was all God. He never gave the dog a bone. It was like kulo lakodesh baruch hu. He only did what's called an ola sacrifice, which means a burnt offering, which means the whole thing is burnt and goes to God. There's other sacrifices actually where people partake of. They eat from. Either the priest eat from it, or the layman just offer a certain part, and then the rest of it they take home and they feed their family, which just means your body eats, which is like part of that aspect. Okay. So in other words, there is another story side to Job, okay? But now I'm just going to get into the whole idea, the principle of this world versus the next. We call this world, we have a nickname, okay? This world is called Olam HaTikun. Olam HaTikun, which means?
The world of repair.
Yeah. Repair is the right translation. I will agree with you. World of fixing. It is a temporal world. We say that the flash, this world passes by, life in this world passes as the shadow of a flying bird. In other words, if you're ever there on a sunny day and you see a bird flash by, that's as fast as the world is. Eternity is a long time. One rabbi, he gave me an unbelievable. I don't know where he heard it from. And it's not even really, doesn't even grasp eternity, because we have no words that can grasp eternity. But if you could get an imagery, I'll give you an imagery of eternity. Picture the tallest mountain in the world, Everest. And you'll picture a bird. Every 1,000 years goes on the top of this mountain. And on the top rock of this mountain, he sharpens his beak and then flies away. Every 1,000 years. How long would it take to erode that mountain from the bird sharpening its beak? Woo! Okay. So, that's what an imagery that someone can possibly give of what eternity is. It's a long time. And we are meant to partake of God, and don't think it's going to be boring. Okay? Gosh, that's going to be what am I going to do? How much backgammon can I possibly play up there? It's not that, okay? So, we have to understand this world as the world of fixing. And things are meant to be fixed in this world. We're meant to fix something. We are being shaped. The biggest answer, it's like I say, no answer is satisfying. But we put kind of pieces together and we try to throw these in our minds to try to help us just to stay together somewhat. Okay? And the biggest answer that most of the Mekubalim and the Hasidic masters give is the answer of reincarnation. That we know that our souls have been here before. No one's really a new soul. They're very rare. A new soul would be someone who is unbelievably enlightened. Most of us, we've been here before. We're on a path, right? We'd like to do what we need to do and what we're sent down here to do, that we don't have to come back again. Would you like to go through grade school all over again?
Yes.
Probably not. And definitely don't want to be born in some cardboard box in an alleyway in Pakistan under fire. Okay? So, you never know what the situation is. We would like to do what we needed to accomplish in this world. Okay? We really need to do that, and you need to focus really heavily that we have a purpose for being here in this lifetime. Hopefully, and it's no accident that you are all here in this room, hearing this right now. And there's no accident that you are connected to Torch, because it is amazing. Torah is the most direct remedy for tikkun. Okay? We have two schools in the world. I know you'll agree with me. There's the school of wisdom or hard knocks. Either you learn trial and error, you fall down, you try to get up, or you get smart and you avoid the pitfalls and don't fall in. And don't be stupid. Okay? And we know this. You see people every day, all the time. Well, that guy's just keep banging his head in the wall. Right? Why does it hurt me all the time? When I bang my head, well, stop doing that. Right? So, there is smarts, Torah. Torah is the wisdom. Torah is the path. It is the navigational map. We can navigate ourselves through this life and fulfill our mission here. Okay? Or there's hard knocks, and then... So here is a great parable that's brought from a great book written by a great Rabbi Tukachinsky. It's called Gesher HaChaim in Hebrew, and the Bridge of Life. Okay? And he explains just one mashal, and it's worth the whole book just for this one mashal, for this one parable. Okay? Just give me, I had it for a second, and now I lost it. 1 second. It was in my... Okay. During those early months when a man is hunched over with his head between his legs, within his mother's womb, his mouth closed, and all his food is prepared and ingested through his navel, enjoying a sublime and enlightened life. Right? We are here to be mentally developed to the same degree as human beings outside the womb are. He would regard his mother's womb as the only world there is. He would think of the period of gestation as one of a long duration, as in the case of a child, for whom, with a life unburdened by cares, time passes by very slowly. For him, his short transition would seem to be a lifetime. He could not imagine a world extending beyond the expanse of the womb. Now suppose that there were twin brothers lying together in the womb, right? Who could think, right? These brothers, let's say they can think. And they ask each other what would happen to them once they left the mother's womb. They would not be able to form any conception whatsoever of what awaited them. All of their eyes would see and their ears hear on earth. Let us imagine one of them believed in the tradition which he received. Don't ask me who he received it from. Actually, there is an angel that teaches us the entire Torah when we're in the stomach of our mother. Okay?
Touch you here, right? It's not the
No, it's not the touch here. It's a slap on the face. The touch here is a myth. It's one of those things that people want to say. That's the purpose of the fulcrum, but it's really not true. There's a rabbi in Jerusalem who will pay you $5,000 if you can bring him the source of this. And I thought I brought it. And no. I saw the language in the Talmud. It means slap on the face. It doesn't say fulcrum. Okay? But it doesn't matter. He teaches us the entire Torah, right? So anyways, he gets a tradition he received that there was a future beyond the womb, while the other, a rational being, would only accept what his own intelligence could grasp, and he, accordingly, would only acknowledge the existence of what he experienced of this world womb alone. The two would disagree and argue very much, as men do on earth. Some believing that man continues to live, others denying that man has any life other than the world of the present. Suppose that the believing brother were to repeat what he had been transmitted to him, that with their emergence from the womb, they would enter a new and more spacious realm, that they would eat through their mouths, see distant objects with their eyes, and hear with their ears, that their legs would straighten, that they would stand erect and traverse vast distances on a gigantic nurturing earth, replete with oceans, rivers, etc. while above them would stretch a sky with its starry hosts. The other, who only believed in what he could sense, would jeer at his brother's naivete in indulging in such fantasies. He would resort that only a fool would believe all of this nonsense, which makes no sense to the rational mind. The more the believer would elaborate on the variegated features that they would encounter in this world, the more the rational brother would mock him and ridicule him. The believing brother would ask, "What then, my enlightened brother, do you believe is in store for us when we leave the womb?" Simple and obvious. Once this enclosure opens and you are torn away from this world where your food and drink are provided, you will fall into an abyss from which there is no return. You might as well have never existed at all, the rational brother would reply. In the heat of their argument, the womb suddenly opens. The naive brother slips and falls outside. Remaining, the other brother is shattered by the tragedy that has overtaken his brother. "Brother, don't leave now. I'll try to save you. Where are you? How did you manage to fall to your destruction? Your folly that these contradictions were birth pangs caused your downfall. That is why you did not clutch at anything to stop yourself." As he moans the misfortune, his ears catch the cry of his brother, and he trembles. To him, this spells the end, the last gasp of his expiring brother. Outside, at that very moment, joy and celebration fill the home of the newly born baby. Mazel tov. Mazel tov, a baby, we have a son. Okay? So here's the line. I think it's obvious what it's compared to. Just as the life of the embryo merely constitutes the transition to a broader, more exciting life, so too, in even greater extent, is life on earth merely a prelude to a more fascinating, glorious life which man, confined with his puny body and with his limited perception, is incapable of conceiving. Okay? So here we just get, however, the great difference between life in the womb and our present life may be the difference which the soul will ultimately find between this life and the life of the world to come is immeasurably greater. In other words, we have absolutely no idea where we're headed, but we're all headed there. Okay? Okay? So just, I showed my dad, my father, may he live long and healthy. My brother passed away some 16 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, sorry. And, my father was also grieving. When he saw this book, he picked it up and took it from me, right? Just to see this mushroom and just to get an idea of it. That where we're headed from, we have absolutely no idea. And all of the sages and all of the prophets have also said the same thing. The spiritual world, Ein lo ra'ata Elokim zu lasecha, an eye has not seen you, God, except you. Only God knows the world, the real world, okay? So we say that this world is the world of tikkun, okay? And there's a purpose. Now, Emunah, I have here, this is my book. I just happen to bring, I don't know if you've ever seen this book before. Garden of Emunah. If you don't have, I have 3 extra copies that I can sell to anybody who's interested. Okay, I just happen to find them in my house, picked them up. Okay, but anyways, this book is a great book. I would think, what do I need it for? I wasn't raised religious, but I've been religious for a while, and everybody knows Emunah. Everybody thinks Emunah, faith is in their pocket. We believe in God. Yeah. I met one guy in the back street in an alleyway in Jerusalem who was one of those. Those Jewish geography things, an old friend. I happened to be visiting Israel and met him, and he says, "I just give the book a reading. It'll change your direction." I gave the book a reading, and then I gave a class on it, and then boom, I got tested. Okay? But listen, nobody should have this test, like I say, but the book still is one that gives the basic guidelines for Emunah that we have to have in order to really grasp the real diamond. Okay? That is the real diamond. Emunah is the faith. It is the foundation of who we are. Inside our very souls, you must know this. We do have a great level of Emunah. We have to get to it. You remember I told you about that angel? He tells you the entire Torah. He gives you even a tour of Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, and a tour of Gehenna. You get a complete tour, whole package deal. And then he slaps you to forget. So the question they always ask is, why? 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 Did you ever ask this? You ever hear about this before?
No, not here.
Why? Why would he slap you and make you forget it? Why teach it to you? Okay? So the idea here is that they give the imagery that they give is one who takes a stone and he chisels with a hammer and chisel. He chisels the message, right? Chisels the Torah. It's chiseling. Engraves it. And then when he slaps a person when they're born, so that's like covering it over with dust.
Covering over with dust.
Yeah. So in other words, the message is there. You just gotta spend your whole lifetime blowing away that dust. What?
Why do you want to cover it?
Oh, he needs to cover because you have to work for it.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the caveats that I just to get back to in terms of the purpose of creation. God wants to bestow pleasure. You are a vehicle to create it, to bestow that pleasure. You know, just to take a little backtrack, the big principle in Kabbalah, one of the basic principles is called the Nama de Kesufa, the bread of shame. The bread of shame principle is basically when God went up in his mind to bestow pleasure, instantly was created this universal soul, which we are all children from, branches of. Instantly was created this universal soul receiving this instant pleasure. This universal soul, which was receiving this infinite pleasure, what an unbelievable experience, turned to God and said, I don't want it. And God goes, why? And so this soul says, you know, you're just giving, bestowing. You made me in your image. Your image, God's image is only to give. I'm not giving anything back. There's shame in me just receiving it all day. It's so much shame. I can't receive it. I can't. So God says, fine. I'll make a world. I'll hide myself in that world. I will put you in it, and through your free choice, you will earn the pleasure that I'm going to give you. Judaism 101. Okay? First stage, which is, I don't know why they don't teach this to every single child in all of the synagogues. Okay? Why they were created and what we have to work on to achieve it. Free will is such a necessary ingredient because we have to be in the dark, because we have to make the choices, we have to earn it. When you earn it, it means something. Everybody will agree with you, right? If you keep giving the kid and showering him money, he doesn't appreciate it. When he has to wash the car, do the dishes, and do things, and he earns that money that he earns, it has more value. The same thing is with us, to give us that sense of value. Okay? So, in the Garden of Emunah, basically, this book comes down to three things, and I call it the three-strand rope of Emunah. The three-strand rope of Emunah is basically three concepts that you must grasp, and they probably will weaken and break. Okay? And you have to keep grasping it, and you have to keep going back to it. Okay? You have to pray for it. Really, he brings down in the introduction probably the most dynamic thought ever. When things seem to break down, and you don't have money, or you don't have wealth, or you don't have health, or you don't have this or that, or something's annoying you, something's bothering you, you know, we can pray for the money, you can pray for the health, you can pray. The idea to pray for is just more trust and more faith, because God is running the show. You need to pray for more faith. That's the first thing. God, give me more Emunah. God, give me more faith. Give me more. You need more of God. We don't need more money. We need more God. So the first idea, concept of faith, in terms of of Emunah, is that God is absolutely creating every single detail in your lives. It's total, specific, divine providence to the minutest detail. We have handed down in tradition, there's no blade of grass that does not have an angel striking it, telling it to grow. So us, all the more so. We are, yes, God is infinite. That's the biggest problem, is people really don't grasp that God is really infinite, and he can be, and he's so perfect, and he's so beyond us knowing. Yes, every single one of your experiences, including to the annoying people in your life, is there for a reason, okay? Is there for you to grow. God made it happen. Nothing is by accident. Every single detail, even our own stupidity, even our own mistakes, once it has happened, was meant to be Yeah.
Predetermination. Is everything already set? You make no
Not
choice.
everything.
What the way my father-in-law explained it, and there is no answer to that. There really is no answer because we are finite beings. Okay? It's a dual existence that is simultaneously existing, a dual reality. We have total free will. Judaism never gets off of that. We have free will. Nothing can turn that, shape that, or take that down whatsoever. On the other hand, there is an aspect of God's knowledge that we cannot grasp. Okay? Because he knows what we're going to choose in a minute from now. Right? But yet, where's my free will if he knows what I'm going to choose in a minute from now? There's no answer. So we look at it as a constant contradiction in creation. Meanwhile, we have to do our job. Our job is we have to exercise free will at every moment in our lives. And the biggest thing to exercise free will is to know that God is making everything. God is completely running the show. When we say the Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. What are we doing? We're saying he's not one and he's not two. We're saying he's all there is. We let go. We let go. And we let God. We let God run the show. We completely let go of everything. That's what Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shemaim is. That's what accepting the yoke of the kingdom of heaven is. Once then you let go, you are allowing God to run your life. Because what happens if you think you're running it? Okay, you could think that you're running it. You can think your decisions are doing it. It's really not so. Okay? We have to, though, use our free will even just to think, to get to that thought. Well, that's what it is. Part of serving God is allowing yourself to be in a relationship with him, allowing him into your life to the degree that you are sending everything to me for me to grow. Instead of me complaining about situations. Wow, what an interesting thing. I can hardly wait to see how this is going to enhance my life in a greater way. Wow, what an interesting thing. I got a flat tire. I can hardly wait to see how this is going to enhance my life in a greater way. Wow, this annoying person is in my life. I can hardly wait to see how this is going to enhance my life in a greater way. That's your choice. That's where free choice is. That's the crux, the inner point of free choice. Are you going to allow God to be involved in your life so you can be open to growing? It's a dynamic thought. Okay, the second thing that he brings down in this book is to know that everything God does is for the good. Kol David Rachmana L'Tav Avid, everything God does is for the good. You need a lot of trust for this, because you don't see it. I'm not seeing it. But I know, but you have to know deep down, even though you don't see it, it is for the good. Good will come out of this situation. Somewhere, somehow, some way. Okay? My son, for example, he came into this world. He had a contract. This is what I told my wife, and this is what I told people. He had a contract. Every soul has a contract before they come into this world. His contract was six years, like 4 months, 27 days, and 36, and so many hours and so many minutes. That was his contract. Okay? And he came for a specific reason. And he knows before he came in what was going to happen, everything was going to happen. But he saw it was going to be for the absolute best for him and for everybody else around him, including us. It's a tikkun for him and a tikkun for everybody. Now, my son, in his short life, he affected more people than most people do in more than one lifetime. We had a petition that went around for an experimental medicine that we were trying to get the FDA to approve. And we had 100,000 signatures plus. People were in New York, in synagogues who don't have internet. They were getting people to sign, and pray. And everybody was praying. How many prayers did this young soul cause to go up? How many mitzvahs did this guy do? Mitzvahs. People were giving food. People were forgiving other people who wronged them serious for my son, in honor of my son. People were doing incredible things. They were accepting upon themselves that they would never accept upon themselves before. What he did, I don't know his path. I don't know what his tikkun is. I don't know why. But I do see he affected a lot of people, and he still does. Still does, because those people still kept up with doing those mitzvot. Okay? So, we don't know what, we're limited. We're so limited. Okay? We don't know, I don't know his journey. But the idea is my dad, he's so amazing, my dad. You know, he's not a religious man. He doesn't do Torah mitzvahs or anything. But he has one mitzvah that blows him all away. He has Emunah to an unbelievable degree. He's a therapist. The only thing he teaches is God is all there is. And there's no spot where God is not, and there's no place where God ends, and Elisha begins. And he went through his test with his son and shares with me some things, ideas, okay, that I'll share with you now. We're going to go over just a little bit if you'll just indulge me. Yeah.
Sure. Just a personal question. When was your son sick?
He was sick for the past, he passed away last April.
Just recently.
Pesach,
Yeah.
Passover.
Just a quick branch of that story. You know, at my house, we put on the film for your son.
There you go. You see? What a,
We had it in Cyprus for Megan.
really? Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
Megan Kluger?
I'm sorry?
Megan, you said Megan?
In Cyprus, where we live.
Uh-huh.
We had a minion for your son. Play on the film.
We don't know. You know, and as he was dying, you know, because he was in a coma the last 4 months in the hospital.
Sorry.
You know, and there were rabbis who we were talking to because, you know, all the tears, and there were a lot of tears. And there still are tears. And this rabbi said an unbelievable statement, and you know, and he says, you know, and I says, you know, well, what's with that? You know, what's with the prayers? What's with the tears? He says, God has a vessel in heaven, a little vessel, and He stores them all, these tears, and He uses them. He saves them. When Am Yisrael, when the Jewish people are in trouble, so He takes those tears and this is what He uses to save the Jewish people in trouble. So, you know, we don't know the merit, and we don't know the force, and we don't know God's accounting. We can't know right now. You know, there are many people who, before they died, you know, I went to a bereavement place. You know, there's a Jewish bereavement, you know, a convention once a year. All parents, you know, who lost children in ways worse than my son, worse than him. Dad, he gave us a great story. It was really awesome. Was that, you know, there was one huge rabbi. He was from L.A. He got real sick, and he, you know, had to go to Mexico for treatment. And he was basically he ended up in a hospital in Mexico, and he's on his deathbed, and he's basically in a coma, you know, and the family's there, and just before he passed away, he wakes up suddenly and he's coherent. He's having a conversation with somebody. And his conversation was, but why? But why? Oh, okay. And then he closes his eyes and he passes away. There was another person that he brings as this rabbi brought this awesome story about another comedian, and he was a really lewd comedian that was not recommended for an Orthodox Jew to watch. Okay, but he's on his way he was on his way to Las Vegas, and there was like a 10-car pileup, huge accident, and he was severely damaged. But he managed to crawl out of his position, and he went from car to car helping people, pulling them out. And then after he pulled everybody out, then he'd just lie down on the pavement. They came to him to try to treat him, and he had the same conversation. But why? But why? And then he closes his eyes and he passes away. You know, we're in the world of questions. We don't know. We don't know. We can't show, you know, you can't show an idiot the artist painting in the middle of the painting. You can't. Because the fool is going to say, this is a piece of crap. This is crap. This is absolute crap. But it's in the middle of the painting. You don't put a period where God puts a comma. That's what my dad always says. You never put a period where God puts a comma. Show's not over. Show's not over. We got to hang on. Okay? There's good. Everything that somehow, some way, and I don't know because we're finite beings. We cannot see infinity. But we know that somehow, some way, there's going to be unbelievable good come out of it. They say, actually, in the end, there's a lot of things that a lot of rabbis say, and I don't even think there's be time to share it all with you. But, even my daughter shared this with me, that in the end, when you go in the next world, when we leave this world, and we're going to see all that chunk of suffering, and we're going to see the unbelievable richness, the unbelievable wealth that is somehow generated from that suffering, we're actually going to come to the point, believe it or not, to say, wow, if there was only a little bit more. If I would only suffered a little bit more. How much more it would have been. We're going to see that. It's going to happen. Because God is infinite. He's beyond. So the other thing, the third strand is, besides we have to know everything God does is for the good. Even though I don't see it now, God, I know it's for my ultimate best. Even though I don't see it good now, I know it's for the ultimate best. The other thing is there's a purpose. And I came to that realization just last week, and I said that to my mom, and because my mom is also, she's suffering, and it's been 20 years. My brother died at 38 of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Terrible suffering, 1.5-year battle. It was the chemo and radiation that killed him, not the disease. So anyways, my mom, I says, Mom, I got it. I finally got it. Meaning it hit home in a deeper place. That all in all, Rabbi Nachman says, for everything there's a purpose. We all do things for a purpose, and that purpose has another purpose. And there's another layer above that purpose, and there's another layer above that person. For example, you want to build a house. What do you want to build a house for? Want to build a house so you can have a place to rest. Why do you want to rest for? Well, I want to rest so I could do mitzvahs. So I can learn Torah, I could do avodas Hashem. What do you want to do avodas Hashem for? Right? So it goes on and on. There's an inner purpose for everything. There's an open purpose. But he goes on to say that the real purpose, to really grasp anything in an event in a person's life, really only very high-level righteous people can really grasp that. We can't grasp it. But when I was learning that with somebody, I finally say, worst comes to worst. Last line, that my suffering that I'm going through right now, there's a purpose to it. Even the suffering that I'm doing now. For sure, the suffering he went through, but even now, there is a purpose. It is serving a purpose. I don't know what it is. So there's the 3-strand rope of Emunah. God does everything. Everything God does is for the best, is for the good for us, and there's a purpose. There is a purpose for it, even though we don't see it.
What's the difference between for the good and for a purpose?
Well, for us. Don't forget, everything is for us, right? Purpose could be for a greater purpose, for Am Yisrael. Okay? Like the tears in this little vessel in heaven that God uses for a purpose. Okay? I'll cut to the chase now and end. Okay? One of the statements is, we do say, that it was told to me, I was it was Purim night, my son's in a coma, I'm in the hospital, some Breslov Hasidim come in the middle of the night, hand me a phone of some rabbi. I get on the phone with this rabbi and says, listen, you gotta grasp this one thought. And you gotta say this. And I said this, and it didn't do the trick, but it helped. You say, God, I have absolutely no idea what you're doing. But I know that you know what you're doing. And you got to keep saying that, and you got to make it deeper and deeper. God, I don't know what you're doing, but you know what you're doing. Now, the bottom line of every single thing that you can tell a person, well, it's a journey of the soul, it's his tikkun, it's a tikkun for us, it's a tikkun for him, and you got to have a moon, and you have to believe in God, and everything's for the good, and all these kind of things that you can say, and it was a gilgul, and it was neshama, because maybe in a past life, he was raised for 6 years. He was a huge scholar, but in 6 years, let's say they have this. This is one of the things that they say. Just a few more minutes. One of the things they do say I'd read you a story. That children became huge rabbis. These people grew up, became huge rabbis, big scholars, big righteous people, unbelievable. Huge souls, helped Klal Yisrael, helped, everybody. But the problem was, let's say, like, for example, during the Holocaust, they had to be stashed in a convent for 6 years and be raised by Gentiles, and they weren't keeping Torah mitzvahs during those 6 years. So these souls have to come back down and keep the Torah mitzvahs for 6 years and be raised in a Jewish home in order to fulfill their tikkun. What does one rabbi said? Like I say, nothing satisfies, but they help to some degree, at least on an intellectual level. Now the big picture here is, the only big picture, and we'll leave off with this, is everything that we do experience in our life is really indicative of something that's going on in a bigger picture. We call it the Shekhinah. We call it the divine presence. In a certain sense, we're all walking in the divine presence. Sometimes the divine presence, most of the time, is in exile, meaning we don't see God. We'd love to see God all day. We'd love to see God all day. We'd love to. It's why we're here. We're here because we want to see God. We want to see more of Him. We don't see Him. There's dark spots. It's called the divine presence. The Shekhinah is in exile. The divine presence, the Shekhinah, is really, to cut to the chase, is really the collective souls of all of us. In other words, we're all connected. All of the Jewish people in the entire world are all connected. There are really, in Kabbalistic tradition, 600,000 root souls that we are all hooked up to. Those 600,000 really hook up to 70, which really hook up to 3, like a tree, branches of a tree. But we're all connected to the Shekhinah inside ourselves. We have the answers, we have the connection, it exists there. Let me just finish this one thought. The only thing that really helps, but I don't say it enough and I should, is that when I get on the phone with other people who also lost their kids, they say, bottom line, now you know what God feels. And it's a harsh statement, but it's true. We're in exile here. Look at what we've been through, in Europe, and now with what goes on here in America with assimilation, and how many Jewish people are falling away, intermarriage, and worse, right? And how many people, you have a connection to Torah. You know how many people don't? You know how many people are just Jews, Yidden, who are just non-affiliated, don't have any knowledge or anything, and are just completely lost. Do you think that God doesn't cry for them? They're His children. He wants that connection. He wants a connection with us more than we want with Him. I guarantee it. He wants it way more with us. And He wants those, and those are His kids. That's His son, who's wandering, who's completely oblivious to a connection. So, as much as it was a harsh statement, I have a special knowledge. I have a special feeling that I know what God's like. I know the divine presence. The divine presence mourns every night that she is in exile because the Jewish people have wandered so far off of where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to do here. We're so far off. We're so far gone. We're scattered in such remote places. God cries for them. Yeah, He suffers tremendously because of the lack of connection, because He wants them. They're important. They're very important. They're more precious than anything. So for me, that's my experience. That's the only thing that it doesn't solve any problems, but it does give me a certain sense that I can now know what God is suffering, and I can know that, yes, I can be in tune with that. And I could wish that we could all now, to leave you with homework, take upon yourselves that if you know any non-affiliated Jews, you got to get them to a Torah class. You got to get them hooked up. Because God is suffering. He cries for his children. So with that, I give you a blessing. Okay? If you know one person, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to make a connection, as small as it might be. You don't have to force them at gunpoint to a Torah class. But don't be afraid to give them some advice. Don't be afraid to be a little bit of a comfort. Okay? Because God wants his kids. Okay? But that will end.
Thank you.
Sorry for going late.